Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Hey there, all you crazy cats and kittens. You're listening to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric Morgert way over there in his own house. So this is great radio, Eric. Jesus
He
Christ.
lives in like a house that's like just the Strange Eons banner, just so you guys know.
That's Vanessa Williams out in the middle of nowhere.
Hi, everybody.
Hanging with a buffalo.
I am. I have a buffalo in my Zoom background, and I'm sorry. I'm in a boat right now out in the forest, and there's a buffalo gently grazing behind me.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
I'm sure we'll hear some bird song.
With a parrot, too, apparently.
Yes, there's also a bird nearby. He's like literally looking at me right now. We'll see how this goes.
I'm Kelly Young, and boy, you guys, this is what an interesting week this has been, huh?
Yeah.
Good word for it.
We are recording remote for the first time, so none of us in the same room, and that's because we are social distancing and doing our part to get over all of this bullshit, and I hope that you guys are out there are all staying safe and doing the same thing.
Yes.
And kind of as an added treat, last week we told you, that I guess last week's episode, we told you that we record these two in a row, and that's because Vanessa drives 19 hours to get here. And doing it this way, we're going to record now weekly, and so I think we'll be a little more topical with what we're talking about, and that includes, whatever's going on with our coronavirus updates.
Ooh.
So, what have you guys been up to? I imagine that you haven't been going anywhere.
Oh my God. Now that you say it out loud, I have to actually think about what I have been doing. I don't know. I feel like, when you're in a casino and time just doesn't make sense anymore. That's how I feel with this virus. I just don't know what day of the week it is. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, where I'm supposed to be going. I just keep pulling the slot machine, i.e. just like the news articles over and over again, be like, is it better? No,
that's
better.
a bad way to go through life. But I do know what you mean, because Eric edits all these episodes. I write the descriptions for them, and generally I get them to him pretty quickly. Last Thursday on post date, he sends me a text saying, "Can I get the description for the episode?" And I was like, what day is it? It's Thursday? Oh my God.
It's true. I didn't even relink our posting because I was like, oh wait, Thursday? When was that? Oh my God, that already came and went. So I keep randomly posting our links for those newest episodes.
Why not?
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's my wife now is working from home too, so that's been kind of cool. But it's I work from home most of the time, so it's kind of like
You have a coworker now.
Yes. Yeah. I like that.
Is she handling it okay? It's got to be odd to be home all the time. Are you guys going on walks or anything, or?
Probably not as we should, but some. Good Lord, the sun just came out here.
Oh yeah, here too.
I paled.
I actually went for a walk yesterday, and it was a nice long walk. It was about 4 miles, but my hips were killing me at the end of it, and my job generally has me walking all over the place, and I don't have that issue. And I was like, you've been sitting on your ass too long when a 4 mile walk is killing your hips.
Oh man. It's true though. You can just feel your body start to atrophy if you're not really careful. So as somebody who works from home all the time, my number one piece of advice keeps being to all my friends, get outside, go for a walk, because that will keep you sane and nothing else will do. You can't sit and watch TV all day and get more mentally better.
More mentally better.
Mentally better.
All right. Yeah, so last night barbecued or grilled for the first time this year, and so that helped.
I saw that picture.
Wow.
Where do you do that? Do you do that on the back patio or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of crowded, but it works.
But you kind of live on a green belt too, though, right? So you just look out into the forest back there. That's nice.
Yeah, it's weird. We're in the middle of Issaquah, but there is a national forest that runs right through the middle of the city, and we're right next to it. So that's very nice.
That is nice. Mine has been, Erie, because, I've got kind of a view of the city and
Yeah.
the water and all that stuff, and there's just fucking nothing going on out there.
Wow. I mean, like because we usually come to yours like on the weekend. So it feels very quiet anyway. So I can't imagine now. It's got to feel like freaking 28 days later over there.
Well, you know that sometimes it's hard to get street parking and stuff like that. Yeah, you can walk out there and there's just not a car on the street. Not a car on the street because even though everything's shut down, guess what's not shut down, guys? The parking enforcement.
What?
Oh, well, yes.
Isn't that fun?
Oh my gosh. I was actually going to say, I've been parking. They have not shown up where like whenever I do go into Seattle, which is like maybe once a week. I was going to
say, what do you have, like one cop on the island?
No, there's no cops on the island. Heck no. We have a fire department and some old people who like drive around with binoculars. So we're pretty set. No, like I've been visiting one person who's also quarantined in Seattle a couple of times. And there's been no parking enforcement. Like they just gave up. They don't care out in Columbia City.
Noted.
Well, you guys, I watched a ton of shit and I'd love to tell you all about it.
Sure. I'd love to hear.
First of all, I want to mention Vanessa. I watched Sonic the Hedgehog and it was awful.
I'm so sorry. The thing is, I'm wondering if it's because it is a kid's film. Like, and I feel bad now. I feel like I've dissuaded.
Because you're closer to being a kid than.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just have a big tolerance for stuff that's aimed at kids, I guess, from my time at Disney, all those harrowing hours. But yeah.
I was just disappointed. Eric knows I'm not the biggest Jim Carrey fan, but the movies I do like him in, I guess, have been his more serious roles.
Oh, sure.
Truman Show. And The Majestic, and stuff like that. This was wild and wacky over the top, and I get that that's kind of what he's known for. And I do like some of those movies. I loved Liar Liar and a couple of those ones. But this one I just felt really bad for him because I thought that he must be needing to pay rent or something if he's taking a role like this.
Maybe it's the good old, my kids love video games, so I thought I'd do it for my kids.
I feel like they gave him, I feel like they drove up to him with a dump trunk of money because he's so good for this role. And I don't know, I can't envision a lot of people being able to own this weird, wacky, over the top scientist in the way that he did.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right. I hope that you're right. I hope that he just got a shit ton of money and he can get back to a movie that showcases his acting ability instead of his wacky ability.
I agree. I'm not a huge wacky Jim Carrey fan. In fact, this is one of the few times I have enjoyed watching him. But again, I had so low expectations for the film that maybe that also clouded my judgment. I'm so happy.
You tainted Kelly's possibility of liking this film.
It could be. I've already spoken more than I wanted to about this because Vanessa already discussed it. I just wanted to say, but
second opinions.
What I watched that I was kind of surprised about was the brand new movie, The Grudge.
How was that?
Remake of the original?
Yeah, and it's not a remake of the original. It's a completely different story, and it's told in 3 different times, and they all start kind of winding together, and it's all American. So it loses a little bit of what made it creepy, I think. But there were some moments that I thought were just harrowing. It's a slow burn, too, which I was not expecting. I thought it was going to be a ton of jump scares and stuff like that. There's long periods of time where nothing is happening, and they're just creeping up, or they're just pushing up the creep factor.
Sure.
Overall, I don't know if I can actually come out and say this is a really good movie. The Rotten Tomatoes percentage is, low on this, but for some reason, it really worked for me. I thought that it was a very creepy movie, and I do love that idea of, the Grudge films all are based on this premise that something horrible happens somewhere and whoever comes in contact with it is now cursed. And there's just no fucking way to break the curse. Even at the end, when you think you've broken the curse, that's not the end. And I don't know why I love that nihilism, but I do.
That's crazy.
Because you usually do. Let's be honest here. Well, okay, well, I saw, oh, man, I'm going to describe this movie and you're going to go, oh, I got to see it immediately.
Oh, no.
And that would be the wrong reaction.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
I was futzing around looking through Tubi, or Tubi, and got deep into their horror section and came across something called Attack of the Killer Backpacks.
I saw the trailer you posted.
What?
Okay, I got to see this. It's German, which doesn't help. so it's because it's got the idea is pure lunacy. That is actually what it is. It's not a metaphor. It's nothing. It is actually a movie about killer backpacks. Set up sort of in a zombie world. I was kind of going, well, maybe this will be a movie we can recommend for this week's subject. It's like, oh, no, it's not. But then it goes and it's got these segment breakdowns like, oh, here is these two people and this heavy, deep, romantic discussion between a couple on a park bench. And they get up and they dramatically go back and forth and fight. It's like, ooh, this kind of sucks because, that's nothing's going on other than these weird arguments. It's like, okay, you wanted to make an art house strange film and then you tried acid for the first time ever and rewrote your script entirely.
Because guys, I've seen through space and time.
Yes.
Let's make a movie about backpacks.
As backpacks actually jumping on people's heads and going munch, munch, munch and attacking them on the legs and they're having to drag the backpacks around. This all sounds like bad movie glory. And if you could take about 20 minutes of this film and just watch it, it kind of would be. Because not only do the backpacks attack and fight people, they have sex with each other.
The backpacks have sex with each other?
Do they,
Yes.
like zip each other? Like, what do you do for
I don't
that?
know. The shot is they're in like a house that's under construction. So it's got that kind of those rails. You see the 2x4s set up in a wall.
Yeah.
And it's got one backpack against the wall going, like, what the hell's going on? And the guy walking down the thing going, are they having sex? And it kind of turns around. You see it's another backpack on the other end. It's like, oh. And then, see, these are the 20 minutes or so that if you could just isolate this, it'd be great. There is two of the lead people who for some reason are fighting each other. I didn't pay enough attention to the movie to know or care. But they both have fencing foils. So there's like a 15-minute fencing battle in the middle of this film.
I like the idea of them wearing the fencing like gear because that makes so much sense in a zombie apocalypse.
No, sadly, but that would.
They just have the swords.
Yeah, just fencing. Like,
I'm dodged.
It's not even a good weapon. Just use like a tennis racket would be more effective than that. That's awful.
So I would say, if that intrigued you at all, pull the movie up, fast forward a lot because that's what I did, and you'll catch a few fairly amusing scenes.
This was on Tubi.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So it may not be there long.
I saw a classic. I saw a classic that I've owned for a really long time and never gotten around to, but finally watched Two Sisters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that Japanese or is that Korean?
I was going to say, is that Chinese?
I think it's Japanese, or is it Korean? I think it's Japanese. Yeah, it was super solid. I had to spend a lot of time thinking about it afterwards because I was like, oh my God, wait, what happened? It's like, like the original, The Grudge, like there's like, it's so hard to parse out like what the heck is going on in that movie, especially at the end where you're like, wait, what did this all mean? So, but it's really beautiful. It's very like.
I'm just clarifying real quick.
Yeah.
Because I was going to look up where it's from. You're talking about A Tale of Two Sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's also a movie called just Two Sisters.
Oh, no, Tale of Two Sisters. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I definitely recommend it. But I've slowly but surely going back and tackling my Asian extreme films that for the longest time I was like a little too scared to watch. And now I'm like, oh no, they're actually just good movies. Okay.
That one's Korean.
Oh, great. Thank you. Korean. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a great film.
What'd you watch that on then? Did you actually own this?
Actually, yeah, I had it on DVD, so I was able to pull out my pretty old copy. And it's funny too, because it's like a Tartan Extreme Home Edition. And so you feel like it's a special thing. And it's really just like the copy Tartan got at a time when it was hard to like distribute that kind of content. So you're like, yeah, special edition. Oh wait, it looks like it's shitty and you bought it off of like a blanket from like some guy selling it outside on a street somewhere.
You're saying it's not Shout Factory or Vinegar or Synapse.
It is not.
Or any of those.
It is not. I mean, it was totally watchable, but it was, you could tell. I was like, man, I'm missing out on something.
There was a time there, and Eric, you'll remember, because when we first started Crypticon, we got like 1 million Tartan Extreme DVDs to pass out and do stuff with.
Oh, that's cool.
And there was a time there where,
those.
well, I think I kept one of each. But
yeah, you should have kept them for me from the past, knowing that one day you'd have a friend who would enjoy that. Thanks, guys. Really thoughtful.
That's how it works. Yeah, but that, the Asian cinema really had a big push here for a bit. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I know that they're still making really cool horror films over there, but we don't seem to get them over here anymore.
No.
Now, I got a lot of that because the Suncoast I worked at, was the one at South Center, was a test market store for anime. We were one of the first Suncoasts in the country to carry anime, starting, of course, with Akira. And when it did well for us, it blew up and became one of the biggest things Suncoast sold.
Yeah. The Tartan Extreme or the anime?
The anime more, but then it brought in all kinds of other Asian market films and stuff. So it was fun.
For sure. I mean, I remember that's how I got my copy of Cowboy Bebop the first time. It was from a Suncoast. So, many iterations of that version of a thing.
Well, I also saw a movie I'd like to steer most of you away from. Okay. Paid money, rented Vin Diesel's new movie Bloodshot because I liked the comic book.
Yeah.
This is very much not like the comic book story. I feel a little bad for the guy who wrote the comic and was probably looking very forward to what this is. This came off more like a ripoff of the new RoboCop, not the old RoboCop. The remake of RoboCop.
Ouch.
Vin is not a fantastic actor at the best of times, but usually his movies are pretty fun. This one, I don't know. It was boring, and that is really the worst, the most unforgivable thing a action movie can be.
Oh, that sucks. It looks so exciting. I almost purchased it a few times now because I was like, I've read the comic, the Valiant series, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you've read the comic, you will especially be disappointed.
Oh,
because it's nothing like that. If you haven't read it, you might be like, "Oh, that was okay, not worth a $20 rental." Okay, but just an okay action film. But if you are familiar with the source material, you're going to be very disappointed.
Oh,
I saw one that you recommended that I'll say.
Oh, he just gave a thumbs up to all of you people who are listening.
Right. The Hunt was stupidly entertaining.
Really?
Vanessa, you have not seen this yet, right?
I have not, because I avoided it initially because I was like, man, I don't want to watch some like anti-liberal propaganda bullshit.
It's anti-everybody.
Politics.
That does make me feel better. Yeah. Once Kelly, once you said that was completely news to me because I was like, oh, it's got to be like, I don't know, some total trash, like crappy, basically level of like, no offense to people who enjoy these, but like those Christian movies that are been like bombarding cinemas now and again. I was like, oh no, it's going to be like the Republican version of that.
No, it's very clever in its setup, I thought, in that it has some nice little twists going on there. And also, I thought but also, Eric, I know you loved as much as I did Ready or Not, and I thought it had a very Ready or Not feel to it.
Oh, yes, that's cool. That's
get up and
praise.
go. Just get up and Vanessa, go and be really grim and gross.
Damn.
Yeah, Vanessa, you didn't love Ready or Not, I think.
I liked it a lot. It just wasn't like, it didn't blow my socks off.
I heard too much from us before you saw it.
I heard too much from a lot of people, like probably 5 or 10 people like in my circle were like, this is the best movie. And I was mad at myself for not seeing it in cinema. And I still am, but like, it's growing on me more and more. Like, I do think it was a genuinely great film. I just, it wasn't like, it didn't completely blow me away because it was so hyped.
I remember when you came up and were talking about it, you pointed at your socks and said, see, still firmly on my feet.
I can see me saying that.
Well, part of what was weird with the film is I didn't watch Glow,
Yes.
the Netflix series. I haven't seen that. So the lead actress wasn't quite as familiar to me as I'm sure she was to many people.
Yeah.
She has, this is not an insult, this is kind of a compliment, but she has the strangest facial expressions. And
She's
work.
mastered a kind of deadpan emoting.
Yes, yeah.
Who is she in Glow?
She is the blonde girl who had the soap opera, and then she becomes like the lead of the team. She's Miss America or something like that.
She's the
the
same
lead.
person.
She's the lead
for
in
Ready
this.
or Not.
No, not
No,
in Ready or
Glow.
Not.
I mean, sorry, in a Hunt.
In The Hunt.
Oh my God, thank you. Okay, I was like, what?
No.
No. Okay, yeah, okay, that makes so much more sense. Sorry about that, guys.
I thought she was spectacular.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she's great. It's just
that's
weird.
cool.
She's just odd, but
Yeah.
it works. Absolutely works.
Hmm.
Did they ever, and if this is spoiler territory and I just missed it, did they ever explain why she is such an amazing ass kicker? Or is it just she is?
Yeah, there's a line of dialogue.
Okay, I must have just missed it, but she is.
Yeah, she's ex-military, so
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's well worth seeing.
I thought so too. I know people are like, boy, $20. If you watch it with your partner, that's less than a movie ticket now
Yeah,
that you
it's
spend.
true.
And that movie is, I think, definitely worth the cost.
The question is, will my mom like it since I'm quarantining with her?
It is gruesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it
I mean,
starts you off with probably the grossest thing in the whole film. So it sets you up
Okay.
and it kind of.
That's true. I mean, like Eric said, it is off and running really quickly.
Yeah.
Vanessa, anything else?
I mean, I guess the only other thing I've got is my mom, who I just said is I'm quarantining with, she has a Netflix DVD subscription.
Oh, wow.
Still, yeah.
You get the deep
that
cuts.
was a thing, to be honest.
Oh yeah. So I have like a list of like 45 or so things on there, and because everyone's stuck at home, it used to be I'd get something in the top like 3 choices.
Oh.
I'm getting like 15, 16, like stuff I threw on there that I never thought I'd make it to. So I've been watching some freaking weird random movies, but I just saw The Current War, which Kelly, you've seen, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that's about the war to get electricity across the United States through different like current methods. And
Yeah, AC versus DC.
Yeah. And it was definitely super enjoyable. I didn't feel like the plot, I don't know that it really had a beginning, middle, and end, but like the journey was pretty fun and the acting in it was stupidly good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the acting. I hated the story. If you remember, I'm a huge Tesla fan.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this movie kind of glosses over
It
really
glosses over
his
him, and it's just
involvement.
like, and he has such a sad ending, and I don't know if that's like how everybody feels about it or not, but like that's what it felt like they put on him. They're like, no one listened to him. He like basically like got screwed over by everybody in his life, and then he died a sad death.
Penniless.
So-
Yeah, that I mean his life is a very sad story.
Yeah.
So that's, and I guess I went into it hoping this was going to be the battle between Tesla and Edison, and instead it was
It's
the battle
not.
between Edison and Westmeyer. Westinghouse. Thank you.
Yeah. But I will say like I said, the acting from everybody was so phenomenal. The fact that like Spider-Man, Tom Holland is there as like a assistant to Benedict Cumberbatch's Edison, and he almost steals it from Cumberbatch. I was like, damn, son. Ugh. Like, you can't take nothing from like Cumberbatch, but man, he put his money on the table, and it was like you can't stop watching him. He has such a great on-screen presence.
It's really surprising because it's kind of an all-star cast, and
Yes, yeah.
boy, nobody's heard of this movie. It just got no theatrical run. I saw it, in the
like
1 week it was in Seattle.
I thought it was like a straight to like Amazon thing or something, like the Aeronauts, but no, it just seemed to like appear, which is too bad. And who's the guy who plays Westinghouse or whoever? He's amazing.
Bug and
oh my god, I'm
Eric, you know
his
who
name.
he is.
Probably, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Ironside. Statham.
Weird.
Fassbender.
Michael Statham.
Michael Statham.
Now you're just throwing last names. Anyway, so is that you got that as a DVD rental then?
I did from Netflix.
So I don't even know if it's
DVD.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's available to stream anywhere. That's the weird thing.
I don't think it is. I think I would have. So anything you can stream, I try not to put on my DVD list because I want it to mean something as much as that sounds ridiculous. I didn't really find it anywhere else. And it was, I don't know, if I ran across it, I would watch it. People out there.
Yeah.
If you happen to
I'd recommend it too.
Run into it. It's good.
I think it's a nice, The Current War. I think it's a nice.
It's not about raisins.
I think it's a nice primer for that whole thing. And if you get interested, there's a lot of reading you can do that tells you the real story. So
yeah, I will say it piqued my interest in a way that I'd known little bits and pieces about the Edison versus like Tesla story before, and like how I've heard a lot of bad things about Edison in recent times. So this was pretty fascinating to like get an additional perspective of what things felt like in that moment. So yeah, fun history.
Reminded me of the old days of Netflix when they had the one factory down in San Jose or something.
Yeah, they're just
2 or 3 days to get the disc.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, mail right now is pretty exciting. Although I am like, did anyone cough on my Netflix DVD and then seal it and send it to me?
Clorox
of course
wipes.
they did.
Yeah, exactly. Spritz it.
Well, all right, guys, should we take a little break? And when we come back, get into our picks for, oddly enough, quarantine films. Since we're all quarantined.
Yay.
Welcome. Please feel right at home. I want to teach you a game called, amusingly enough, Stay Alive. It's quite deadly. To win, you eliminate your opponents like this, or they eliminate you. It's great fun. I'd be happy to teach you how to play, but there's no one left. I'm the sole survivor. Stay Alive from Milton Bradley.
Oh, we're
No. All right. Hey, we're back. And Eric, this was your pick. We decided we were going to go with films about quarantine people, and it just happened to be on the first episode we're all quarantined and recording remotely. So why don't you start us off?
I don't want to.
You don't want to? Oh,
no. I picked a film from 2011 called Retreat.
You're having a few days away from the wee ones, are you?
Just a bit of peace and quiet, really.
You're going to the right place for that, boy.
We love this island, you know. We've had some good times here.
Martin, there's someone here. I just saw them.
Doug, if you can hear us, this is Martin Kate. We need to report an injured man.
So it's just the two of you on the island. I can tell you something. There's been an outbreak, a global pandemic. It's failed and it's spreading rapidly.
That's crazy. I'm not staying here with them.
Our best defense is to make this place safe.
Why have you barricaded the door?
Everything we do here is to minimize the risk, not just of the virus, but of people trying to escape it.
I have no idea what's actually going on out there.
They'll be back. We have to be on our guard from now on.
All that I know is
that for the moment, we are stuck on this island.
I want to go out.
There's nothing out there for you anymore. We're feet after me. We aren't going anywhere.
We don't care what's out there. We don't want to die here.
Who's got the disease?
There is no disease.
We know what you are.
He's been outside and breathed the air when I told him not to.
You're not.
Drop it!
We're never going to leave this island. You'll never leave.
Didn't necessarily get large release or anything. I couldn't find any budget. It was a box office of $4,498.
Oh no.
As always, I love those randomly strange numbers.
Festival showing or something.
Odd.
Yeah. Tomatoes has it at 62 and 41.
41 for the
crowd.
audience.
Yep. It's directed by Carl Tibbets, who is best known for Black Mirror. A lot of Black Mirror episodes, specifically White Christmas and White Bear, and the Women in Right miniseries.
Didn't know that was a thing.
The Feed on Amazon. So that Black Mirror is definitely his main thing. Written by him and Janice Hollett, and this is both of their only writing credits. So take of that what you will. Stars, the cast is good. Clinton Murphy. You'll know him whether you know who it is or not. I know you know him. He's the guy in Scrubs and the 28 Days Later poster images that you've seen everywhere. If you've seen any advertising for 28 Days Later, you've seen this guy.
Is he like the dude on the front of the posters that they're using for, like, you know how like sometimes people buy up a title and then like put a different person on the front of the movie?
No, he's in it. He's the guy that's running down the empty streets at the beginning.
Oh, never mind then. All right.
He's in Inception. He was the Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
Oh yeah, that guy's great.
Oh, so Cillian Murphy.
Is it Killian? Okay.
It's Killian.
C has a lot of different pronunciations.
Right.
He's also, and a couple more. Murphy. He was in a pig in Disco Pigs, whatever that is, but it sounds interesting. Also, there's really only three. There's maybe 5 people in the movie, but only 3 people really do anything. And the second one is Jamie Bell, who was born in Bellingham, England.
Really?
I was like, is this a kid from Battlestar Galactica? Is that what Jamie Bell is from?
No, he was in the dancing. He was the Billy Elliot.
Yes, exactly. He was Billy Elliot. He's the Thing in the 2015 Fantastic Four.
Oh.
Jumper, Jane Eyre, 2011.
He's Beast in X-Men, right? In the new X-Men's.
He is? Boy, this episode has gone way out of control.
Yeah.
Eric, I know you've got his IMDb in front of us. You can tell us.
I've only got the notes I've written down. I didn't see that one. He is in Nymphomaniac Volume 2. Does that help you, Vanessa?
No, I actually did not see Nymphomaniac 1 or 2. I've been a little burnt out on that guy. I'm getting ready.
Me too.
I'll go back.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up while you're talking.
The third was, and Kelly, you'll know how to pronounce this one too, in case I'm off. Thandie Newton, Westworld.
Yeah. Boy, this is a great cast.
It is. They're really good. She's also, in The Unfortunate Crash, the one that won Best Picture, and Mission Impossible 2. Westworld is definitely her biggest thing right now.
Wasn't she also in Solo?
I don't know. I think she was. Yeah, I believe she was.
Yeah.
She died on the, sorry, spoiler alert, but died on the bridge, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically the storyline is the 2 leads, however you say that one guy's name, Thaddeus. Kate.
By the way, I was wrong. It's Nicholas Hoult who is playing Beast.
Yes.
Sorry. A different British child actor turned into human being. Okay.
You almost never go wrong with the idea of a British actor playing some role. Anything, even though this is a British.
I know. I'm sure he's an X-Men somewhere.
So, true. Good point. Anyways, Kate and Martin decide to go away after the deep and complicated and never used plot line of a married couple having problems. So they decide, hey, let's isolate ourselves in an island on a cabin in the middle of nowhere. That'll make things easier for us to work everything out. But so that's the start of the film. It's the idea of them going to this cabin and trying to figure out what's going on. And she's kept a secret from him, which you don't know what it is. And this guy shows up in military garb, blood all over his head. And he breaks into the house and starts telling him about this pandemic that's happening around the world. He has escaped, but is being chased or something. He's kind of sporadic in the way he tells his story. They steal the guy's gun when he comes through the door because he passes out shortly after arriving and hide that away. And they've also found a shotgun earlier on, which for some reason they're not using. So basically it becomes is this guy full of crap or not story. And that's most of the film. So of course there's violence and the guy figures out her secret. Of course, it's going to use that against him, and it's well acted. It's good. It's just not remotely original. It's really a story you've seen a lot, and if you like this story, you might enjoy it. However, as escapism from our current situation, I cannot recommend this film. Because the end is grim. It's a dark freaking ending.
Even for like a movie about quarantining, which is usually like some kind of big disastrous thing.
Yeah, even for that, it's just like, jeez.
Oh,
it's got. And so go away momentarily if you don't want to be spoiled. But I'll go ahead and tell you the ending. Why? Because I'm going to recommend the two of you don't bother. Because
wow.
Unless you really want to feel depressed. It turns out he's right. There is an epidemic, and he is patient zero. The guy that broke into the house is patient zero. So he
knows this about himself?
Yeah. Okay. He knew it the whole time. And the military is hunting for him. So they kill him. The husband has been infected. So you get a missed kind of moment where she has to help him kill himself. And then she starts to head out to the boat trying to get away while a military helicopter flies above and snipes her.
Wow.
That's super missed. That feels very missed, which is tough.
So I hope if you guys did listen to that and you're interested in finding a quarantine film that maybe watch this one 8 or 9 months from now. But I wouldn't really.
When you're just like, when you need like exposure, immersion therapy or whatever.
There you go. It's well acted. It's worth seeing. If you haven't seen a movie where a couple goes away into a cabin to try to fix their marriage, you'll see something you may not have seen before. If you have seen a couple of those films, you're not really going to see anything you haven't seen before.
Okay.
So, what was this called again?
The Retreat.
Weird that I've never even heard of it, but it didn't sound like the audience loved it, so maybe it didn't get a American release even. Maybe
I don't think so. If it did, it wasn't just the streaming release. I think it was Amazon. The ending gives it a rough time to review, and I do have a problem with down endings usually. I'm fine with that because we watched a lot of horror. Of course, we're used to down endings, but Jesus.
Wow.
Huh. Well, I was going to go with, as soon as you mentioned this, I thought I've got to go with 10 Cloverfield Lane because I just fucking love that movie.
Right,
But I didn't because I came across, also on Amazon Prime, you guys, from 1976, a movie called The Cassandra Crossing.
1,000 passengers sealed on a train. Why? Armed guards in spacesuits. Why? It is forbidden to leave the train alive. Why? 1,000 human beings on a journey to nowhere with one-way tickets to hell.
No choice. Yeah, we're going to die. The children. The girl over there. What's
Jennifer, stop it.
Katerina.
Stop it.
But how can
Stop it.
Send a plane to warn them. Put flares on the track. Give them a signal.
Any
passengers attempting to escape from that train must be stopped.
1,000 lives are at stake here, including you and your men.
Come in, Dr. Shenry. Hello! Hello!
Cassandra. Crossing.
Cassandra Crossing.
I want this train stopped now.
My orders come from Colonel Mackenzie. Okay. Then I'll start with you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Huh?
Go ahead. Go on, Rob.
Sophia Loren, Richard Harris, Martin Sheen, O.J. Simpson, Lionel Stander, Ingrid Thulin, Lee Strasberg, Burt Lancaster as Mackenzie, Ava Gardner as Nicole, a powerful cast of international stars in the most spectacular suspense film of the year. The Cassandra Crossing.
I know you must see me as some sort of a monster,
You had every option wired.
but it's my job and I do it well. You think I'd purposely murder 1,000 people?
Anybody heard of
It's not
this
a porno?
Cassandra Crossing.
It sounds like a porno movie from the 70s.
How is there a 70s disaster film I haven't heard of?
It is a 70s disaster film too, Vanessa. You're
Holy
gonna love
wow.
this. So it had either a budget of 3 million or 6 million, depending on who you ask. It had a box office of the box office wasn't revealed, but the director said that they made their budget of either 3 or 6 million back just in Japan alone.
Oh my
So
God.
so it, it made some money, but I'm not sure exactly what. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have it at 29%.
Ooh,
The audience has it at 52%.
Oof.
This was directed
nice.
by Strange Eons radio stalwart George P. Cosmatos, who also directed
excellent.
Of Unknown Origin, which I talked about once. He also did Rambo, Cobra, Leviathan. Oddly enough, he did Tombstone, which was a fantastic movie.
We know this guy? That sounds cool.
And no, we don't know this guy. It's just we've talked about him a lot on this show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were like friends with him.
I was gonna say, you didn't recognize any of those films? Just like,
No, I recognize a lot of them. I was just like, I thought he was like a friend.
No. He's also the producer of Panos Cosmatos, who directed Mandy and a couple other films that I didn't care for. This was written by a couple of people, but most notably Tom Mankiewicz, who is a script doctor, famous script doctor in Hollywood, who he doctored all of the Superman films, Gremlins, Goonies. He wrote half of the early Bond films, the 007 films. Just a very, very famous scriptwriter and doctor.
Wow.
It stars, check this shit out, Sophia Loren. 1976,
Oh, wow.
Sophia Loren is like the most beautiful woman in the world.
I can imagine.
It stars Richard Harris, Burt Lancaster, Ava Gardner,
What?
Martin Sheen, Lee Strasberg, and O.J. Simpson, who you may know from killing his wife back then.
From other great murderers as
Right.
his wife.
Wow, that really is a 70s movie disaster.
It's a disaster movie. When I tell you the storyline, you're going to be like, oh, the writer, Tom, he called this The Towering Germ. He called this movie The Towering Germ.
This sounds so good.
I know, it's so your movie, Vanessa. So the film opens up with 3 terrorists who are infiltrating a hospital laboratory, and then they botch their mission. Was they were going to blow up this laboratory that they think has like some germ warfare or something going on. And this is actually a pretty cool scene. They come screaming up in this really low-rent fake ambulance that's like a Ford Econoline. They painted white and threw flashers on the top, and it just looks. I mean, when this is coming in, you're like, Jesus, they had no money, and then you realize, oh, these guys aren't really ambulance drivers. They race in with this guy who's on a cot, and there's a police officer that goes, "Wait a second, the operating room's over there," and the guy on the cot pulls out a gun and shoots the cop. And then they all run in and they're trying to get this stuff set up, but all these soldiers show up and they start shooting at them. They shoot two of the guys, and they're in the laboratory where all this stuff is, and they manage to explode all this shit on top of the third guy, who escapes. It's actually a pretty fucking great opening scene. I was like totally in. Like 10 minutes into this film, I was like, this is my film choice. I don't care how the rest of the film is. That does come out. That does come back to bite me, because the film gets really fucking stupid from here on in. Not to say that I did not enjoy the fuck out of it. So the terrorist ends up getting on this train that's full of all of our cast now. And that's when it turns into a 70s disaster movie, because we meet the cast and they are all kind of interacting with each other in ways that we don't quite know yet. Martin Sheen, young Martin Sheen, who looks just like Emilio Estevez with 70s hair. He is with Ava Gardner, who has got to be 30 years older than him by this time. And you're wondering why he's with her. O.J. Simpson is a priest. Yeah, Richard Harris and Sophia Loren. Richard Harris is a famous doctor, and Sophia Loren just happens to be on the same train with him. They were married and they are divorced now, and she wrote a best-selling novel about a woman who was in a unhappy marriage with a doctor who was, all about his job and all this stuff. So you're seeing all this drama coming, right? Well, here comes our sick guy into the middle of all this stuff, and it's an old-style 70s train, and it looks like it's shot on a train. All the shots are very cramped and all this, but this guy is clearly ill. He's sweating profusely. He's pale and everything. He also walks up to people, touches their baby on the side of the cheeks, all this stuff. And you're like, well, you would never let anyone who actually looked like this even come near you, much less touch your baby. But he's doing that. He's shaking hands with everybody. He's getting everybody sick. Meanwhile, the secondary story has Burt Lancaster as this general, this army general who knows what this thing is, and he's trying to hide the fact that America had germ warfare production going on. And so he basically calls the doctor, Richard Harris, and tells him, look, you've got a sick person on here. I need to know if he's still alive, where he is. We need to lock him down, and we're going to have to quarantine you guys on this train now. And Richard Harris is a doctor, and he understands how dangerous this is, and he's just like, okay, I'll do that. And basically the guy says, look, because of what's going on, I can't just pull you guys over and have people leaving the train. So I'm kind of pushing you towards this bridge where we're going to stop you on, so that nobody thinks they can just get off, and we'll figure out how to deal with this instead. Okay. Nice. Richard Harris is all about, look, we don't want this, whatever this thing is, to get out. It's basically a super flu. We don't want it to get out to everybody. So he goes along with it. But then as this is going on, there's this, now this movie is just crazy, because they're searching for this guy who's hiding on this train somewhere. We find out that O.J. Simpson, he's actually an undercover Fed, pretending to be a priest.
Makes sense.
On the trail of Martin Sheen, who is a heroin trafficker.
Good grief.
Whoa,
so there's all of this shit going on.
You need more stories.
Yeah. And at one point they drop off these soldiers who are now kind of on the train with everybody, telling them, look, this is what's happening. You're going to have to stay here. We're quarantining you, all this stuff. The train is moving towards this bridge, which is the Cassandra Crossing, is this bridge over this very high river, gigantic river down below. This is somewhere in Germany, I believe. It becomes this race against time to try and find this guy, but also Richard Harris then finds out, talking to somebody, he's overheard something, that the bridge that they're going across has not been in use forever because it cannot hold the weight of a train on it. He gets back in touch with the general, Burt Lancaster, tells him, hey, this isn't going to work. This train or this bridge can't hold the weight of our train. And Lancaster's just like, sorry, you're breaking up. Click, hangs up on him. And you realize that's his whole plan, is he wants everybody on this train to die. He does not want there to be any record of this going on. So now, with this, it's a race against time to try and get the train stopped because the military doesn't really know what's going on, and they're making sure this is what goes on. We are getting to this bridge. Also, Richard Harris is finding out, wait a second, this illness, this super flu, it's not as dangerous as we all thought it was, because people who caught it on the train are already starting to get better. And he's like, oh, this isn't the killer everybody thinks it is. There's no need to kill everybody on this train. It's pretty silly. Let's get down to it. But so is the Towering Inferno. So is the Poseidon Adventure. This, I don't think, quite deserved a 29% rating. It is, interestingly enough, R-rated. And it is because, look, if you guys are listening and you feel like you want to watch this movie, skip the next 30 seconds. Because, Eric, I'm going to beat you on grim endings because the train goes down. And they show it in graphic explosions and people dying and getting thrown around and all this shit. It's fucking crazy.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So let me tell you a few things about this film, some of my favorite trivia pieces. Richard Eder of the New York Times, who is their movie reviewer, he called the film profoundly, offensively stupid.
Sure.
Gene Siskel of Siskel and Ebert, he called it an unintentional parody of a disaster film.
Oh my God.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
At the press screening, the film was booed and hissed by the press.
By the press?
Yes. And it was the graphic scenes of the passengers dying at the end that got it an R rating.
So if they just swapped that one scene out for something different, they would have been fine?
Well, I mean, there is a scene where Richard Harris manages to get Sophia Loren and himself off of the train because they uncouple this one train, but most of the passengers are on the rest of the train that goes down. And it is a shockingly different tone. I mean, when the train suddenly went down and there's these flames bursting up and you're watching people just fly through and get stabbed by, pieces of the train and shit, I was like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? This feels like a massive reshoot or something.
Yeah.
I found no
reason,
no information that actually said that happened, but it was so wildly over the top compared to everything else in the film.
It does fit with a lot of his films, though, as far as being incredibly violent.
That's true. Yeah. I loved this from minute one all the way to the end. I thought it was just an absolute blast. It is 70s disaster porn. And I had never even heard of it. Yeah. Never heard of it. And I fucking loved it. So
nice.
Oh my God. That sounds incredible. And how did you watch this again?
Oh, Amazon Prime has this beauty, Amazon Prime, that for some reason that has always felt like the dark horse for me. You don't really think of their streaming movies, but the movies they have are just so fucking weird and all over the place. So
when you start at the surface, it's not so much, but you click on that one and down, it's like, what?
Other viewers also watched.
It just gets weird.
It does. Yeah. If you let it just keep suggesting stuff, at some point, it gets this magical rabbit hole effect.
Yes.
Pretty special stuff.
So that was my pick, The Cassandra Crossing.
Oh, sounds amazing. I definitely want to check that out. I went ahead and checked out a film that I hadn't seen yet, but had seen the remake of. And this is the Spanish movie called Wreck. have you guys seen this?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd seen Quarantine. So I'd seen it, and then
Decent remake.
yeah, and I tried to watch Rec like right after, and this was years ago, and I was like, it's such a 1-for-1 that I just stopped because I was like, I'm not into this. And now I'm like, well, I forgot everything that happened in Quarantine, so today's the day to watch Rec. It was made in 2007. It's a pretty low budget film. Like, it's very much for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a found footage style movie. The budget was 1.5 million euros, whatever that means. At that point in time in 2007, I don't know if that's good or not. And then the gross that it earned back was 32.5 million.
Wow.
It was huge. I remember when that came out. It hit huge in the indie horror watchers.
Yeah, like I didn't remember it being in theaters necessarily, but I do know that it was in like a ton of festivals, and like it was like in Fantasporto, Sitges, Amsterdam. It was like killing it that year. So it definitely made a big splash. As far as Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 89% critic and an 82% audience. So super high.
Yeah.
It's not too long. It's only 78 minutes. So it feels like a good length for what it's trying to do. The basic setup of this film is there's a TV reporter who's doing this show that's like while you sleep or whatever. It's basically meant to be like a poppy like news show about like things that happen while normal people are asleep. Let's check out this bakery or whatever. And so it's very meant to be like low budget local TV style kind of thing. And she is going to follow around a bunch of firefighters for the night. Basically what happens is there's a call, and when they go to the building that they have been called over to, there's a woman trapped in her apartment. All hell breaks loose and they get quarantined into the building. But I will say, like, the setup is really, it feels very authentic. Like, this is known as a like kind of pivotal, like top tier level found footage movie. And I think that that's done super well from the get-go. So the very first shot you get is the reporter like talking into the mic and then like kind of restarting a few times, which is, it just tells you immediately what's going on. And then she goes to this, the firehouse, and like everyone's really awkward. I feel like they must have used actual firefighters for all but like the two guys who end up being in the like movie for the rest of the time, because it's just like a whole bunch of just dudes who look like they are local, maybe even volunteer firefighters. Nice. There's a lot of like downtime where they're like, she's like, is anything going to happen tonight? And they're like, well, maybe. And they're both like, not that we want anything to happen. We definitely don't want anything to happen, but maybe something will happen. And so there's just this great lead up of it, and they're like bored, they're like sleeping for part of it. There's like, they're playing basketball, and while they're playing basketball, that's when the alarms start going off, and they're off and running. Once they get into the building, it's really interesting because you feel like, oh, it's on a routine call. There's like an elderly woman who's like, you know, maybe it's like a fall and can't get up situation. It's meant to be very low key. Once you're in the building, you're in the building. Like, they go up to check out the woman. She's just covered in blood in her like underwear. She's completely lost her freaking mind. She immediately goes and like bites the neck of one of the policemen who's there to like help, and just is like got all the strings like hanging out. And it's that kind of 2007 like mini DV tape style quality. So everything's like a little bit too fast of a frame rate almost. And so it feels like almost soap opera-y to look at, which gives it this extra layer of authenticity that was really like gripping me, because it doesn't have the quality you now get of found footage movies where they're clearly shot on like the minimum of a red. It's gonna be like a good freaking camera nowadays that they're just like making it look a little bit crappier in post. But once she starts eating people, like there's just this huge like uproar of activity that just goes bam, 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 where you're seeing everything through the lens of this poor camera guy. God, he gets it rough. He's running freaking all over the place. Half the time he's getting screamed at, and they're like, "Don't film this! Don't film this!" As like this kind of contagious thing starts to get worse and worse, as more and more people are like biting each other. And the other half, he's like running up and down stairs and trying not to get eaten by people. And then he's like, has to be used as a flashlight. And they're like, turn off the light, turn off the light. And then they're like, turn on the light, turn on the light. He's like the only source of like actual light for a good portion of the movie. And then the actual anchor, the actress who I totally skipped over, but I didn't find that she'd done a ton of stuff. But she's just like losing her freaking mind throughout this movie. She's just screaming. And I'm like, how are you both physically super capable of handling yourself and like getting through these awful scenarios and yet screaming at the top of your lungs in every moment? You need to freaking pick a lane. But one of my favorite scenes though from this film is when they go to the policeman. It's like all just kicked off. Policeman's neck is all pieces and they're trying to get him out the door. Obviously they just parked there. They just entered. They've been in the building for like maybe 10 minutes and the doors are just locked. And there's just people outside surrounding it and you can't see it. It's got this sort of Gaussian, sort of filter over the door. So you can kind of see things moving around, but you're not sure what's going on. And then you just see these like giant plastic, like curtain things just fall down around all the sides of the building. And you're like, what is happening? It feels a lot like a very standard zombie style fare, but there is a nice twist at the end that reveals that it's more than just a normal what you're expecting from the outbreak. That being said, I'm surprised the ratings are as high as they are. I think because this has become such a trope and so much of what this movie does has been copied and pasted over and over since it's come out. So I think my overall feeling was that this film was totally awesome in a lot of ways. It's super fun. It's super fast. I feel like the use of found footage works really well, the way they're doing it. It doesn't feel forced in the way that a lot of people feel things like Cloverfield or I don't know, anything.
Most of them. And it's honestly creepy and scary through a good portion of the film.
Definitely. Yeah. Like at one point, this little girl is like, who's not feeling well. She's downstairs and like, and the camera guy, they've told the camera guy to keep like turning it off. So it keeps clipping from being on and off. And every time it's on, it's very like purposely, like there's a reason why they turned it back on. And at one point it's just on the floor and the little girl is pressed record and she's like looking in the lens and like touching the lens and stuff. And you're like, that's so genius. And you're picking up bits of conversation that's happening like above. And then the camera guy looks down, he's like, why is my camera running? And he's like, somebody touched the lens. And he's like furiously cleaning it. And you're like, it just feels really authentic in a lot of the ways that it's going about things. The people being a little screaming over the top is probably the part that feels the fakest. But by the end, I was like gripping my seat and I know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen, but I'm just like, oh my God. And like jumping like, oh my God, another thing popped out. Like, of course they did, but it just worked really well. The things that I didn't necessarily like, I feel like the plot at the end runs a little bit out of steam. I feel like they wrote themselves into a corner and I don't hate the ending, but like it doesn't feel complete. It feels like they
Are you talking about
a wall.
Are you talking about the kind of explanation for what's going on or something else?
I'm not totally cool with the explanation. I think that's super neat and adds in some layers. they are going upstairs to try and get keys so they can go to a basement to get out. And they found like one last ditch effort to escape. So they're forced to go like further and further up. And then at one point, there's just the entire stairwell is filled with all the dead people you've seen along the way. And they're just chasing them upstairs. So they're like forced upstairs. So this entire plot point where they're like going to do the next thing is sort of cut off. And then when they get to the top of the building and they start to see why all of this is going on, they're stuck. Like you cannot get those characters out. There's no way this plot can like get out of this room. And you feel like, oh, and then they had to find a way to end it, because how else are they going to end it? Like it felt like a little bit like they made an ending that worked with the location that they wrote themselves into. So I don't hate it. It's just, it felt weaker than a lot of the rest of the film, which felt very purposeful. And then the other part that I didn't like is the ending theme song.
I don't remember it.
It's insane.
Wreck, hey.
Oh God, no, that would have been better, Eric. That would have been so much better. The blob, the wreckity wreck. No, it's just like super like it just like jumps into something that is so different than the entire film. They're like, yeah, we're fucking alternative and edgy, and you're like, my heart. Like, the credits are pretty short too because it's so low budget. But oh man, so yeah, I'd recommend it. Unfortunately I haven't seen it free anywhere. I like have a DVD copy and that's how I watched it. But it's only like $3 most places. So if you want to see a really fun quarantine film where a bunch of people are trapped in a place and they sure don't have any say in it, and the authorities are making them do a thing all day every day and they don't like it and they don't understand it, and you want to like identify with that, it's a good film.
I would say you mentioned Quarantine versus Wreck, and I think Wreck's a lot better. Quarantine's a good remake, but all the things you mentioned that kind of work with Wreck, I think work against Quarantine. Quarantine's much slicker, it's much smoother, the acting's always on point. While Wreck, because I watched that almost back to back, not realizing Quarantine and Wreck were what they were until I'd watched both of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I liked Wreck a lot more. I just felt it felt more, it used the found footage so much better, where Quarantine was just a slicker of a film. You know?
Yeah, and I know that like for the age I was at and the level I was at as far as movie, that would have been like the year I got out of film school. So I know that I was just like, yeah, this is a crazy cool film. Quarantine, yeah, I'm watching something a little different. Ooh, aren't I cool? So that was perfect for me. Like that was a good speed for me at that time. But yeah, I agree. I think knowing a little bit more about movies, I was much more engaged with Wreck because of the authenticity that I was feeling through the like hokiness of it. Like it had some almost the same WNUF quality that I really like, where it just feels a little real in such a way that I buy into it a lot more. And guys, if you do see Wreck and you like it, there are 4 of these movies as well as the remake. I haven't seen any of the rest.
I've seen all of them.
Yeah, I have too.
Would you recommend them?
The third one for sure.
The third, that's the wedding, right?
Yeah, the wedding.
That one's good.
That one is.
That sounds awesome.
Is better maybe than the original, I think.
I'm gonna watch that tonight.
Well, I think I'll toss in because of your hatred of found footage films, maybe because it isn't a found footage film.
Right. It plays with the idea. It starts off as a found footage film and then becomes something else.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
It's a totally different kind of film, but it's really entertaining.
Gosh.
The fourth one is not great. And the second one
is
totally forgettable because I don't remember anything about it.
So this is really interesting. Okay, so and I totally glazed over this, but there were 2 directors on this film. One was a guy named Jean Balaguerra, and he wrote and directed this movie as well as Rec 2, Rec 4, and then some other Spanish stuff. I think his only American piece is something called Inside. And then the other director, Paco Plaza.
Not the French film?
No, I know.
Okay.
I had a moment. I was like, is this a French movie? No, it's a different one. I think it is actually American. He wrote Rec 2, Rec 3, Veronica, and a movie that I haven't seen, Eye for an Eye, which is out on Netflix as well. So he's becoming like a little Netflix directing darling. So if he did Rec 3, and that's a really good one, Rec 2, and the other guy did Rec 4, I think we know where the talent lies, eh?
Yeah.
Maybe not in Walm. Maybe it lies in Paco, eh?
And I didn't love Veronica, but I know a lot of people did.
A lot of people did. I haven't seen it. It's been on my list for a long time now, but yeah, it's good stuff.
I think that I liked Quarantine better, but I wish they had followed it to the end of Rec, because I like the ending of Rec, the explanation for what's going on, a lot better.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't even remember how Quarantine finished out, but it's interesting because at the end of Rec, you get this sort of creature effect that's digital that at that time, rewatching something like that should be stupid looking. I didn't find it stupid looking at all. I was like, it does feel a little like you're in a video game though. I will say, like especially near the end of Rec, like you have to go get this thing to get this place to go in this area. And then this thing gets unlocked and you get this little bit of more information. So you do get this like feeling of like playing through, but I was cool with it.
Pick up the mushroom, grab the coins, go!
Yeah, totally. Press play on the recorder. Oh, you get like more info. Whoa. I do like Rec though. There's this interesting like moment of racism. Actually, we could probably relate to this really well.
Boy, this is the wording you've got going here so far is horrible. There's this one part I really liked in Rec. There's this racism scene.
No,
you're all gonna love it.
No, oh my God, no. Okay, so there's an Asian family, and at one point they the rest of the people who are living in the apartment complex find out that there's a elderly sick man upstairs, but it's kind of a lost in translation thing. He didn't come downstairs not because he's sick, but because he's disabled. And so they start being like, the Chinese people, they're the ones who brought this disease into this place.
Does this sound familiar?
Interesting. Wasn't. Maybe there's more going on. Maybe it's just like a false, fake little ending along with many other little
It's a documentary.
It's actually just a piece about our time. It was a fortune teller letting us know it was going to go down. If anyone starts sweating or tries to bite you, don't let them. It's passed by the saliva.
As opposed to normally when somebody tries to bite me, I just go, yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Enjoy.
Chew away.
Okay, well, nice choices, guys. Vanessa, that means that next week is on you.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about it, and since we're going to be stuck inside more, and I think people have a lot of time, and they probably want to kill something a little bit longer than the length of a normal feature, I'm going to throw out their mini series. I think we should hunt down a genre mini series that will just be a nice little chunk of us to like, spend a few hours disappearing into. So that's the challenge for you guys.
I like this idea. This opens up, I mean, when you think about it, there have been a ton of miniseries.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for everybody hanging in there and sharing, liking the posts, all of that stuff. Eric is going to put this up, I believe, on YouTube if it all works out correctly, and you'll get to see what the three of us look like.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So everybody, stay safe out there. Stay sane. Keep washing your hands, and we will be back in a week for a miniseries.
Shall we introduce what we're going to be doing?
Oh, right. Because like you, we don't have anything better to do either. We are going to be doing a couple of mini episodes during the week too. So watch your feed. If you're subscribed to us, they're just going to show up on your feed and we'll just call them, mini episodes and all that stuff. And you'll get to hear us chat for, 10 or 15 minutes during the middle of the week.
Neat.
Groovy. All right, guys. We'll see you, in 3 days or something for a mini episode.
See ya.
Perfect.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Margaret. Our theme music is Strange Eons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Eons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts are found.